Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and it's time for the 2021 Holiday Q&A. I like to do these at the end of each year just to wrap it up with a nice laid-back, long-form podcast video. I do this every single month on Patreon. If you're interested, you can always check it out. A couple more announcements before we get into it. I might take a vacation, might take a holiday. I have a lot of family and friends coming in town, so if you don't see a video for a week or two, that's because I'm going to take a little bit of time off, but then we'll get right back into it. There's going to be a nice little surprise in January. Anybody who watches this video, you're getting a little spoiler for something that might happen in the next month or so. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with the first question from Tim, who asks, what's a beginning pandemic prediction you had about the space that ended up being totally right and totally wrong? Super good question. I think the number one thing a lot of people thought would happen is that there would be a continued demand or interest in Pokemon. If you go back before everything, the craziness of 2020, you already had that incremental growth happening. I would say even before 2016, you had definitely almost about 10 years now, I would say you had a pretty strong incremental interest from like adults getting back into it. So that's been happening in the background for a while. Of course, you have your peaks and valleys with certain cards here and there, but overall it was like this, and then 2020 just erupted. And I don't think anyone saw that degree of growth coming. I think a lot of us who've been around a long time expected something to happen, but nowhere near the magnitude. So in a weird way, it's like, yeah, I expected growth, but just not that level. Like nobody saw like the Logan Paul thing happening. Never would imagine like Steve Aoki playing dolls with Gary at his house. Like you could have never told me that. Like if my future self came back and told me that, I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Like, what's this joke? So yeah, I think a lot of people expected some type of growth, but nowhere near the degree, and especially how fast it happened. So of course there's going to be certain cards that went way up and some that are coming just as hard down, some that have stayed up and some in the middle. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride. If you survived 2020, it's been a crazy experience. I haven't experienced anything like it outside of maybe Pokemon Go, which is a smaller scale, and the 90s boom. But yeah, that's my rundown on my prediction, I guess, for the pandemic. Next up, Doitoner, Doitoner. If anybody's a Patreon, they know I cannot pronounce half the names. Are there still cards you actively hunt for to add to your collection? Do you still have any collecting goals left? Thank you and happy holidays. That's a really good question. I usually try to do some type of binder in the background to keep that collecting flame burning. And what I've been doing lately are creating too many binders. So I have like binders, for example, the Alpha one in Magic is probably one that I don't even know if I'll ever complete at this point. Within Pokemon, I have an absolutely insane Japanese one I'm doing. Like I talked about, I feel like I'm just saying Patreon every other sentence here, but I talked about in Patreon how I bought a Trophy Kangaskhan recently for this binder that I'm doing. So like that's how crazy it's going to be. But I have a lot of those like projects going on all the time. I definitely hit like a lot of the big goals of, the super big cards and things like that. Like I did that years ago. So now I'm like trying to do like these really fun combinations, even like the artist binders. Like that's a great bang for your buck. Like if you like a certain artist, getting all the artwork from that artist in a binder, perfect. It looks so good. It's such a like fun, just organic way to collect. So I have a lot of fun with those too. So that's really what I'm doing a lot of right now, are just like these binder projects that really are a kind of an intimate personal thing that I don't share publicly. It's just a real fun way to like disconnect and, get deep into enjoying collecting. Toho says, hey Scott, happy holidays. With rumors around Magic the Gathering pushing towards serialized limited cards, do you think that Pokemon would ever do the same? If so, do you think the Pokemon collecting community would enjoy something like that, or is it something that will always stay in the lane that's tailored towards other collectibles like sports cards, etc.? I'd love to see serialized numbers on trophy cards that have a limited release, just so we have confirmed numbers and rarity gauges. I don't think that concept feels right in cards containing standard booster boxes. Thanks for taking a look and keep doing what you're doing. Love the channel. Appreciate it, Toho. By the way, quick roll call for the drinks. We're doing it publicly just like we do privately. We got the coconut water here, the unofficial sponsor. We got some hot tea to hold us over. Got to stay hydrated. So as for serialized, someone just asked this last month, and in the last Q&A I just did, they asked me about the same exact question. And if you're referring to like the refractors and things like that, or the RPAs in sports, that's a tough one for me. So I think what makes Pokemon so special is that the big cards, the rare cards or whatever, are given out organically. If anything, one of my like favorite smpratisms is that the most valuable Pokemon cards in the hobby were given out for free. Like they weren't even sold as merchandise. They were given out like the Illustrator, free. Trophy Kangaskhan, free. Pika trophies, free. These are all awarded, to winners, and I think that's what makes them so special. I see the angle there with numbers for, understanding rarity and all that. But one of the things that came from, the craziness of 2020 is understanding extra copies and how to accept them and understand how that works in the grand scheme of things. So I could see how that would help for people who are concerned about that or prioritize that. But overall, I don't really know if the Pokemon collecting group, you guys can let me know if you think that's something you would really want. My gut is saying no in general. I just don't see it being much of a thing for Pokemon collectors. I think why it exists in sports is because it's so much more about the lottery, the gamble, like the investment, the stonks and things like that. Where I think Pokemon has a wider collecting audience. And yeah, sure, there's the crazy people who talk to you in a grandma house and are super serious about it, but there's a lot of casual people, who just want to collect something. So yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. I think ultimately I would say no, but that's not like a 99% no. It might be like a 65% no. But I could see the angle with like the rare stuff, but overall, I just don't know if it'd mesh well. Cole says, what do you think about the future of PSA? I'm getting back into collecting, and I have a lot of pack fresh ungraded cards from Diamond and Pearl to Black and White that I'd like to grade, but is it feasible right now with the price hike? I don't even want to flip. I just like looking at the PSA cards I pulled myself. Appreciate all your videos. I think it's just a matter of time. They announced the other day that they plan on doing the cheaper services in like the summer of next year, so it's a wait and see. This is still, talking about 2020, this is still dealing with this new demand. They are, everybody who has any type of anything at this point is dealing with this demand. You have startup companies happening every single week now. Like, it's just unbelievable how much demand there is for graded cards at the moment. So yeah, once that cools off, or once they have enough employees to deal with it, yeah, hopefully this summer you can start sending stuff in. You probably won't see it for another couple of years. That's the reality. You're going to send it off on a voyage, like send it off on Titanic, write some love letters. Hopefully you hear back from it a couple of years. But yeah, I would say it's just a waiting game, just being patient. That's what I'm doing. Everyone knows I send majority to all my stuff to PSA at this point because it gives you maximum value, and I'll just wait. I think for people who need to flip or do whatever, that's your choice. But yeah, as you mentioned, you're not really interested in that. So it's just a matter of time. Ben asks, you consistently say that collecting needs to possess an inherent challenge, while finding ungraded minter examples of old Japanese cards is less challenging than WotC. The Japanese print runs are speculated to be more limited, modern and vintage. Will the scarcity eventually lead to a moment for Japanese cards, or will people never really care about Japanese cards the way you do for English? Thank you for everything you do for this hobby. Merry Christmas. Long time E4 lurker, Ben. Glad one of the lurkers decided to emerge. E4 is like 95% lurkers. It's crazy how many people and who's all lurking on there. But yeah, this is a good topic. This is one of those that you could really dig deep into, probably for an hour on its own. So in short, Japanese is more than fine. I've just not trying to humble brag, just giving you a ballpark number to emphasize that point. I've done over $1 million easily in just Japanese cards, like easily. That's a conservative estimate. So it's something that doesn't have a popularity issue. Now, in the context of something like WotC, of course, sets in English are definitely more popular than sets in Japanese. However, it's not like a binary where it's all or nothing. So there's plenty of demand out there. The one thing I'll say, an interesting thought experiment is if you had equal quantity for both sides of the fence. So let's say you had the same amount on each side. How those markets handle them is completely different. Like Japan does not really have paper wrist. They're not as aggressive as the Western markets where there's everyone ripping, flipping, botting, scalping, and all that stuff. That stuff is very rare in Japan. It exists, but at a very small level. So even if the quantity is the same, the how and how they process it over there, I think keeps things more consistent. But overall, yeah, the set stuff isn't as popular, but I think the promo is the opposite. Japanese promos are way more popular than English promos, like way more collectible, because a lot of them only exist in Japan. So, and I do see the other thing to consider here is the rising tides lift all boats mentality, where a lot of people who are priced out of first edition or shadowless or unlimited or whatever it is, any type of set, you can go to the Japanese equivalent and get the same art for usually a fraction of the price or some, difference there in price. So I think over time, you already have seen certain things like shining cards that are at the same level as English. The ones with higher fundamentals, I think, are already at the same levels. But I think over time, you're going to see it get a little bit closer. It already has. Like, you already see the tide increase. And I sell my Japanese holos for much more today than ever. And that's because there is more demand. And part of that might come from like people who are like, okay, I don't want to spend $1,000 on this card. Maybe I'll spend like a couple hundred for the same artwork. Next up, Pikachu says, hey Scott, as someone who's followed you for years, I want to know why you don't collaborate with other YouTube channels. I know you have no time because of running your business, but do you think putting yourself out there on occasion, podcasts, other channel Q&A would help expedite business growth while also help other creators? I feel like your ROI is there, so I'm curious why you haven't taken it. All right, so this is a question I get a lot. And I'll just go down the hierarchy of reasons. So number one is definitely time. I don't have time. Like what Rudy said the one time when he went to a convention. He was gone for however many days and sent him back like weeks. That's literally my life. Like right now, I have to grind and do videos just to take time off. I have to get everything ahead of schedule just to take like a week off. So that is by far the biggest variable. Now, the only other things right now with the craziness of everything that's going on in the world, that's an issue. But you might see a curveball here, and that's all I'm going to tell you. You might see a curveball. The other thing I'd throw out there, and I'm going to try to say this as politely as possible, is that a lot of the collaboration requests I get are trying to like add legitimacy to their product. So I get a lot of requests for new grading startups, new crypto infused NFT, fractional share, all that stuff. I'm not joking. Every single week I get a message like that. And what people want is me to add legitimacy to their product, and that's just a massive risk for me. So those are a lot of the collaboration requests I get. And again, outside of the major issue of time, that's really the only other reason, is that it's usually some business who just wants me to like do free advertisement, and it's just not my thing. I'd rather be free and talk to you guys like freely and just tell you what I really think. So yeah, those are the reasons. But then again, you might see a curveball in the near future. Jay Scotty Sun says, do you ship through GSP? If so, how do you go about dealing with international buyers constantly asking? Oh man, yeah, that's a frustrating one. So I recently changed GSP, talk about the pandemic and all that. That was a linchpin for me. The mail was insane. I've been buying, selling for 15 years. I've never experienced anything like that. And because of that, I had numerous packages that were either lost or risk of being lost and all that. So I'm like, yeah, I got to make the transition. I was one of the last of the Mohicans. I was holding on, one of the last US people not using GSP, but I had to do it. Also because eBay is implementing pretty much everybody to do it. It's pushing everyone that way. So yeah, what I tell those people is, I'm sorry, I can't control it. This is just the way it is. And, feel free to buy from someone else who doesn't do that. It's very few and far between now. And that's really just all you can do. Now, the one frustrating thing I will say is that I'll run, as I do consignments and auctions, and the people who bid, and then at the end, they're like, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay these fees. Or I had people who were like, hey, can you take all my cards, put them in a new listing with a new invoice so I could save $50, $100? It's like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, that's something you should, this is not my problem. Ultimately, it's because of your country's laws and how all that works. And I get the upfront charges with duties, but this is just what eBay's pushing everyone towards now. And again, because of the pandemic, it's unreasonable to expect, these sellers just to be like YOLO and ship this stuff out. And I think that's always the issue. If someone shows some type of like negotiation on the other end, if they come to me, like I had a guy the other day who wanted to buy like thousands of dollars worth of cards, I'm like, sure, you can wire that to me and I'll send it to you, your preferred method. But otherwise, if you expect to have that insured and underdeclared, like that's just hypocritical. Like nobody could possibly do that for you. So yeah, that's just the reality right now. The landscape is GSP, eBay's pushing towards that. Even PayPal. The other day I tried to do a label for a super secret Santa present that I was sending to somebody overseas, and it's still doing the same thing where it goes to like a middleman and then they repackage it and send it out. So I think that's just going to be the law of the land moving forward. I think that, mark my words, 5 years from now, I think that'll pretty much be the main, if not the only, shipping option that you'll have as a seller. Next up, didn't see the name here. I'm on the belief that TPC is coming out with new sets too often, which is hurting the consumer experience and overwhelming casual collectors. Do you agree with this? I think more the quantity of cards per set is the issue. I do see what you're saying. I am a little bit overwhelmed with all the like different types of releases. Like with Celebration, you have the ETB, the Pokemon Center ETB, the UPC, the Chunky Pikachu release, and all those other little like types of products out there. So even within one set, there's a lot of stuff if you want to go for each, type of product release to collect. But I think a bigger issue is like set size. There's too many cards in some of these big sets, too many types of cards to collect, especially when you only have one rarity slot. it's insane. Like you have like the other day I talked about how there's like 74 secret ultra VMAX cards altogether. That's like more chase cards than the entire set of jungle or fossils. So I think that's really the bigger issue. But I can see like how having too many different types of product is overwhelming. Even for me, I can't keep up with all the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, the regular ETBs, like all that stuff. It is a lot. I feel like Lego's doing that too right now, just pumping out so much that if you were someone who wanted to collect it all, it's just not possible anymore. All right, Burke says, Generation Seal product and singles hitting astronomical prices. Do you think Celebrations do the same in the future? You got to understand here that we're 5 years out from Generations. Generations was like this. Even in 2020, it really didn't explode like everything else did. So, you know, considering all that, I don't think Generations is really anything to celebrate. I don't think it's like one of those things to look at as like a good metric for what you want. If Celebrations did that, then yeah, I think that's good. But you're talking 5 years, definitely 4 years of pretty much no growth. Like I remember being at regional tournaments where everything shut down in like 2019, early 2020. They still were dumping like the Generations like tin or pin boxes. That's what it was. The pin boxes for pretty much the same price, like maybe $20, you know? And yeah, that's my take on it. But yeah, I think Celebrations, if we're talking fundamentals of set composition, Celebrations is way better. It's a much better idea than Generations. Generations was kind of lackluster when it happened. I'm like, okay, and then Evolutions came out. I'm like, that's the one. Like, that's the girl. That's the one we wanted. Like, that's the thing we were looking for. So there you go. By the way, that's the girl is a Twin Peaks reference for those who are deep into David Lynch. Next up, White Tiger 0707070 says, what's your outlook on sealed WotC now that it has retraced significantly from 2020? Very good question. I talk about this all the time in Patreon because for the longest time, ever since I've had a YouTube channel, WotC boxes have been like this, and everybody and their dog's like, yep, WotC boxes only go up, right? You know, scarce, not going to be more of them, they're limited. The thing people don't understand with WotC boxes specifically, excluding maybe the tail end of the bell curve with like E-Series, is that WotC boxes have been around and have so much product available. Like I'm talking like airplane hangar. Like that's not an exaggeration. Like Base Unlimited filled up an airplane hangar. Like it's nuts how much was printed. So that's why I always tell people set cards, there's always another copy. We are seeing it right now with all the people going in their closet, ripping out the WotC cards. You're seeing it all the time now. So anyway, that's why you're having this retrace. The exposure from 2020 was fantastic because what it did is it basically shot this huge explosion out there and put out this like big like beacon radar, like Zubat supersonic, you know, to the world and said, hey, if you have this stuff, it might be worth selling right now. So we're seeing that supply come through and it really has not stopped. You have seen crazy things like 9 first edition Neo Gen boxes of PMCC. Like that's more than I think we've ever seen at once. And the nice thing about that one is they held pretty well. But yeah, overall, there's definitely worse offenders. Like the tail end of WotC, I think is doing better than the front end outside of base. So yeah, that's definitely a thing that I think is going to continue to happen in the short term, you know, with all this new product coming in from that 2020 exposure. I think for the short term, you're probably going to have these prices for a bit. You know, years out from now, who knows? You guys, it's all based on how much that supply remains. And yeah, but for the short term, I think it's just more the same. Isaiah says, what's one collectible that you would never let go of no matter what money someone offers you? Super good question. Not only am I going to tell you, I can show you. We're doing a little show and tell here. So I have multiple cards here up for display. So this one is a first edition Red Cheeks Pikachu that is signed by Mitsuhiro Rita. Now this thing has so many layers. I did a big deal with Gary a long time ago. I even made a video about it back when you could like see the secret window back there, and I was a little bit more cringy than now on this channel. You know, I talked about how I did a big purchase, and this is definitely one of the most iconic cards. I bought it from Gary. It was signed by Arita. It's got a little drawing here, Pikachu, and this was done personally at his house. This was done through a friend of Rita. So this thing has a ton of sentimental value. You know, and it's not going to be represented in the price. Like this has so much sentimental value to me. He even misspelled smpratte, so we got an error as well. This thing has layers. So yeah, this is definitely one of them. Another big one is, as some people know, my lucky University Magic card. So if you don't know the story behind this, this card is definitely one of the rarest cards in the hobby. It was only given out at the Tamamushi event in Japan. It was a really fun event, a great example of like how Japan is very clever and creative with how they do these releases. And basically you attended this, and I think if you got rank A or higher, you receive this card. And it's unique to that event. It's got Magikarp doing Dragon Rage, which the only way you could get that was at that event on your Game Boy. So I bought a collection from a guy in Japan. And these cards look great. I was like, oh, it's a Masaki set, you know, some things here and there, set cards, some promos. So I'm going through the bulk just to go through and see, oh, are there any vending cards? Maybe you forgot about a Coral card because that happens pretty frequently. And then once I get to the water, this thing is staring right back at me. And I was honestly dumb. I'm just looking at it like, what? Like, it didn't register. I'm looking at it like, is that what I think it is? Like, is that a University Magikarp? So this is my lucky University Magikarp. I have higher grades in both 9 and 10. This guy's staying with me for the long haul. Like, he's an 8, by the way. I don't even care about the grade because kind of like with that Pikachu, it's just such a special story. And, you know, those are 2 examples I always keep here that are very, very special to me. And I don't think there's money that really could motivate me, you know, to sell them. So, though, very good question. And those are the first 2 that come to mind. All right, B and It Yoga says, what franchise do you like to see have a successful TCG? It could be anything, Mario, Legos, etc. Oh, Boogus. This is Boogus from E4. I don't know. I feel like there's so many TCGs now I can't keep up. There's so many like startup TCGs and money grabs and everything now I can't even keep up with it. But Lego I think would be fun. Lego doing like all the vintage, doing like Castle or doing like you know how there's like Base Jungle Fossil? Here we go. Lego doing like City. And then you could do like all the different years. Space. That's it. Castle or like Island or like Explorers or like all that stuff. That'd be perfect. Star Wars. Oh my, that's it. Give me in the boardroom right now, Lego. Give me in there. Like that'd be so awesome to see that. I would definitely be all over that. And especially if you could do like a lot of the art or I guess the display. Like I'm looking back here because I had that Lego set displayed back here the other day. Like how they set up the set and like the background. It looks so 80s, 90s. Like, oh man. Yeah, that's what should happen right there. If anyone from Lego, let them know. Like they need to do it. If you can have all these no-name startups like stonking with creatures that people don't even know or can pronounce, like you could definitely do something like that with Lego. That'd be fantastic. Next up, Kivo says, what do you think about the Metal Charizard? Do you like metal cards? I'll be honest with you. Metal Charizard, it's not bad. It's decent. But overall, I'm not big on metal cards. There's a trophy that's metal in Japan, super rare. I couldn't care less. You know, it just doesn't do it for me. However, I do like the Metal Charizard. I think it is a nice, like, little... It's an outlier, but it works. You know, it has the base set art. People like it. I think it just is one of those one-offs that I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, it's a nice addition to the Ultra Premium collection. You know, it adds a layer to it. But overall, in general, I'm not big on metal cards, but I think that one... Kind of like with the stamps. Like, the Pikachu stamp thing that happened, the promo, and, you know, those other stamps... I'm not going to go out and collect stamps, but I do like that one with the Pokemon on it. Even if they did more Pokemon stamps, I'm not sure if I'd be big on it, but that one, you know, is pretty cool. LA Butter says, can you see PSA ever going back to $10 submissions? If not, what's the lowest you see them doing, hopefully in the near future? This is a pretty big question a lot of people ask, and I think ultimately I could see them going down the scale. They just need to have enough people to handle it, because once you do that, it's going to be a tidal wave. Like, I'm hemorrhaging cards over here, and I'm, again, sperm the sperm whale. There are probably businesses and people who have much more volume. You know, I probably have, just to be transparent, I probably have 4,000 to 5,000 cards that need to be graded by PSA. And, you know, I just don't know how they can manage that if they lower that price down to 10 again. However, if they do, if PSA can get that price lower, all these hole-in-the-wall garage startup companies are extinct overnight, because there's no use for them anymore. The only real value that any of these new companies give you is that you can get your cards back, but what people don't realize yet, you know, what you could already see it from a year of what's happened, you're not getting the value added. Yeah, you get the card back faster, but you're not really getting the maximum value on your item. So, yeah, if they did bring it down, they'd eliminate all that competition, I think, overnight, but they would have such a crazy backlog. I think it'd be worse than even what they have now if they did do that. Of course, I'd love to see it personally for all the cards I want to send in, but I think in reality, that would mean the cards I send in would probably take, again, the Titanic voyage. I'd be hanging on to that door. Hopefully, Kate Winslet lets me on. That's what I'd be doing. I'd be sitting there for 2 years. Like, never going to let go, but it'd be a long ride. I think it'd be a long journey if they did $10 submissions. All right, next up, we got PFM. Made it in the top 25. PFM says, how did it feel when you found out first edition Black Star promo 1 Pikachu was both the first English promo and first secret rare? Of course, PFM asked like some super tips fedora question here. Yeah, I already liked, in all seriousness, I already liked Ivy Pikachu. Like, it didn't even forget about the first edition stamp. I already liked it. That was my first promo I ever got. I got from the Toys R Us in Ferguson. Super special to me, super nostalgic. So yeah, that whole story was magic. That's definitely one of my favorite, well, we're talking top 25 here, easily top 25 E4 moments was that one. I think it was Rusty too, who had the pack or whatever, that prototype pack, or what we think is prototype. So yeah, it's just another layer to something that I already liked, and I think it is cool how there's a few of them in the jungle packs. It's just a really cool story, and if it is all true that they were like doing it, that it was on purpose, that makes it even better. So yeah, of course, PFM's asked this super technical question. All these people are like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think about this general topic? Yeah, how do you feel about this specific card, and how does it make you feel? But yeah, overall, it's just another added layer to something I already liked. Ambrosiac, I think I pronounced that right. Do you have any knowledge about Komiya? There's so little to find on the artist. I think he's massively underrated as an artist in general, and if you can meet one artist at Pokemon, who would you meet and why? So, as a lot of people know, another show and tell here, Komiya is definitely one of my favorites. This is that Voltorb from Vending, one of my favorite cards. Again, not a monetary thing, not worth much money at the end of the day. Just love the art. I remember seeing that in a card shop back in the day and being blown away how Voltorb could be drawn like that, or Electabuzz in the background blew my mind as a kid. So I absolutely love Komiya. I think he brings something fresh to the table. Now, the other side of the coin, Sugimori, the OG, who defined how Pokemon look, they'd be my top two probably. Sugimori just because he's the godfather of it all, and he's super reclusive. But this is some major free Patreon info here. I've had conversations with Komiya. It's a lot of the Japanese artists are very tentative, in their communication. They're very cautious, which makes sense, reasonably so, because there's so many people who are probably like, can you sign this? Can you do this? Can you do that? And yeah, I think a lot of these artists are very low key. They try to, just keep a more reserved existence. Definitely take like smpratte over here. They're definitely flirting with being reclusive. But overall, yeah, he's one of my favorite artists, and I would love to meet him. Definitely need a translator, but him and Sugimori, I think, would be my top ones. There's plenty, though, that like the new ones, like Sao, Kirasaki, or like the OGs. There's so many OGs I'd love to meet, like Uyama. Meta Mikuni, actually. That's once in a lifetime. That was unbelievable at Worlds. So yeah, Komiya and Sugimori is my answer. Michael says, what are your thoughts on long-term investability PSA 9 base at Shadowless versus PSA 5 to 8 first issue Shadowless cards? Do you favor a higher grade Shadowless over lower grade first edition? At first, I thought this was going to be what should I buy, but this is actually a very relevant discussion that has happened throughout the history of Pokemon. So this conversation has existed forever, and it used to be PSA 10 versus 9 first edition. Now it's like PSA 9 Shadowless versus mid-grade, first edition base. And ultimately, I choose first edition at the end of the day. Now, if you're saying PSA 5 versus a 9 Shadowless, yeah, maybe that changes it a bit, but ultimately, first edition base is first in every sense. And this is coming from someone who has an extreme nostalgia for Shadowless. Like, I look at a Shadowless card, and it does the same reaction that it did when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my god, it's Shadowless. I can name all the Shadowless cards I saw when I was a kid. It was really exciting. It was a special thing back in the day, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. So I have a lot of nostalgia for Shadowless, but realistically, market objective speaking here, first edition base usually wins out. And especially if you're comparing a lower grade to the one above, in general, not all the time, but in general, I'm going to choose the first edition. Like back in the day, I'd rather choose the 9. And the reason why, back then, especially, I think maybe even 8 to 9 I'd have to go through all the numbers and see. But the winning combo is you can scale up usually with the first edition. And the first edition is typically much more liquid at a certain price. Let's keep in mind here, Shadowless is still an S tier thing, or an A tier thing at least. It's not like we're comparing first edition base to like modern energy cards. These are both contenders here. That's why the question's so good. But yeah, I think in short, first edition is where my immediate reaction is going to be. And especially if I can scale that, like if I can get a bunch of PSA 7 first edition cards versus like the 1-9, I feel like I'm spreading my risk out rather than just having the one card that might explode because of the popularity and then come back down, because of the popularity. Where if that same thing happens with the 7, at least I have a wider array and I can piece some of them out to maybe get my money back or get myself in the black and then, just smooth back. So it gives you more options if you look at it from that perspective. But yeah, this is a question as old as the hobby. It's been around forever. It's just the grades have changed, as the availability has declined over the years. Jonathan says, what do you want to be remembered by after you're gone? He's going to hit me with one of these deep ones out of nowhere? I don't know. I've never thought of that before. I honestly never thought of that before. I'm trying to think, like, what I'd even... I don't know. For Pokemon, I guess just, like, hopefully people appreciate the hobby more because of the content. That's maybe the biggest positive I could think of, is that hopefully the videos help you understand or appreciate collecting. Because I think what collecting did for me is it helped me through a lot of hard times, and I think it helps a lot of other people, whether it's 2020, whether it's like you don't know what you're going to do for your career, or you're having a rough time in a relationship, etc., you lost your job. I think collecting is really a nice, healthy hobby that has done so much for me that I think me being able to talk about that experience helps better understand like the value of collectibles outside like the big money and all the stonking and all that. Because I think the general public isn't aware of how fun this is. I think some people would just dismiss it either as like, oh, kids game, or whatever cynical take. And I think there's so much good that happens within collecting, not only on a personal level, but like a community level. And I just want people to, I guess, appreciate like I did. And yeah, I guess that's what I'd be maybe remembered for. I don't know. I've never really thought about it beyond just like, okay, I gotta do a video for this week. So what am I gonna talk about? So anyway, yeah, that's a pretty personal question there, Jonathan. But yeah, I think that'd be my general takeaway, is that hopefully like people can appreciate, the hobby or collectibles like I did. Hopefully that's the big message there. Panicked Peacock says, which TCG, either alive or dead, would you never touch? So I don't want to name some, because if they get named, people are going to dogpile on it. Because again, when someone asked me about, I think it's Pikachu asked me about why I don't do collaborations, because there's so many companies that watch this channel, they're like piranhas, just waiting for something to latch onto. So yeah, what I would say, the best way to really say it without saying it, is all these startup companies in the past year or so, the Kickstarter ones, the countless ones that are just either borrowing from Pokemon or Magic or other major elements from all these big TCGs. It reminds me of the 90s flash in the pan. Like, there were so many Pokemon imitations. There were so many of them. Like, I remember going into like stores and you'd see like these little like plush eggs that you open up and it's like, oh, is there going to be a gold one in there? And they were gone like a month later. Like so many things to try to copy Pokemon. So I would say the startup TCGs in the past year to two especially, a lot of them are money grabs. A lot of them are based on, can I make money as fast as possible? Wall Street Bets-esque, like that type of mentality, NFT type mentality where, it's like hot potato. It's like, can I sell this to the next guy, to the next guy? And if you join those Discords, I think the real linchpin for me is that people aren't talking about how much they like the art or whatever, like you do in Pokemon. We talk about Komiya and, the artwork and how shadowless and how much we enjoy it and how nostalgic we are, because there's this organic pull and interest to it. Where all these new startups, it's all about the money, Everyone's talking about the money. The owners are in on the money. They're talking about, like, someone will join and say, hey, does anybody have this card? And like 50 people, I'm not exaggerating, will message them to sell that card. So to me, what that tells me is a lot of speculation, a lot of money. And if there is an actual huge recession, big recession, I think a lot of people are going to get burnt because you're in a time now where the people on the front end who are building it up, like the classic pump and dump, are getting it off their hands and getting rid of it. And then, the people who are speculating beyond that, you got to understand you're speculating on something that doesn't have a long organic history, that doesn't have an objective data point of being the largest media franchise in the history of man. You don't have those type of things to give you that reassurance and confidence, i.e. you don't have fundamentals. So, that's the risk you're taking. Some people don't mind, but I'm doing a select all here on all those new startup TCGs. I just don't see it. I'm not talking about like, oh, your favorite video game now is a TCG, like even like a Final Fantasy. I got some Opus 1 boxes. That's like a low-key TCG in my opinion, but it's based on an actual game that people enjoy, have an experience with, has lore, etc. Like a lot of these new startups aren't even playable. Like I'm not exaggerating, they're not playable. So that's my take on it. Pretty much every startup TCG that's not based on anything, like anything prior, it's a massive, massive risk. And especially with all the big money NFT, crypto, Wall Street bets, fast money world that we're in now, everyone can make a quick buck and talking to a camera. It's just too much speculation for me personally. All right, Shizzle Me Timbers, the banner wizard, is asking a question here. Shizzle says, what is your favorite E4 forum Discord moment meme of 2021? Man, that's tough. It's going to be your thumbnails are going to be the obvious answer. For those who don't know, Shiz is the wizardry behind all the anything on E4, my channel. He's like I don't even know what to call him. Like I call him a wizard because using a normal word doesn't describe how good he is at Photoshop. Like even guys at hockey will see a thumbnails and they're like, how does this exist? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm a boomer. I don't understand any of it. But anyway, to your question, praise aside, to your question about the meme of 2021, that's going to be hard to pin down. There's so many good memes that happen all the time in Discord. Discord is like a living meme. Like you see memes being born every week or every day. I think like the actually like grading company one where it's like the guy in the background, he's like, they don't realize that card has a print line on it. That's a good one. Yeah, your banners honestly are going to be the best. Like the whole 2020 era, like one meme after another with like all the openings and everything that went on. I honestly can't pin one down. Like if I go through E4 and just blindly scroll through and just like point on one, I feel like it's going to be good. The one with the McDonald's promo, I remember that one. I think I posted that one. It was like, I saw it somewhere else. It was like some guy, like some stereotype, like overweight dude, My Little Pony, like his stomach pushing out through his shirt, like going up to McDonald's, asking for like 300 Happy Meals so he could take all the packs or whatever and flip them the next day. Like there's so many memes. I could sit here and do a whole video and just scroll through like PokeRev did that day. But anyway, appreciate all the work you do for E4 Shiz. It's unparalleled. You're the best out there. Pixel Trainer says, what are your thoughts on the one-of-a-kind promos given to Katy Perry, J Balvin, and Post Malone? Could this possibly be most rare and valuable Pokemon card on the planet? I personally am not big on them. Aesthetically, they just don't do it for me. It's cool they exist. I hope the people who get them care about them or, enjoy them. Honestly, even the Ishihara, I could take her to leave it, to be real with you. Like, it's just okay. Like, it's not bad, but it's not like, even more, I'd take a Worlds trophy over that stuff. Because I feel like that has more meaning, has more history to it. Where these are just like, kind of like a gift to, it's like, okay, thank you for collaborating with Pokemon, which is cool and all, but, like even J Balvin, I don't know who that is. Like, way too boomer to know who that guy is, so I'm assuming it's a guy. But yeah, that's really my take on it. They're alright, they're not bad. I don't know if they're the rarest out there. There's plenty of really, really rare cards in the hobby already, but for a modern release, yeah, it's decent. For me personally, I'm not super excited about it. It's all right. Maybe if it came with like, okay, Katy Perry meet and greet, all right, maybe we're spicing it up a bit, but other than that, it's just okay for me. Next up, Josh says, how do you feel about being an underrated OG in the Pokemon world? You see stuff on this channel that you won't see anywhere else, and props goes to that. Well, I'm glad that's appreciated. Yeah, I definitely don't have the blue check mark metrics. I think I'm just content knowing I'm having fun doing it. I see a consistent audience and consistent group, and especially Patreon. Like if I did not have Patreon, I would not be here. I think I have a very healthy Patreon core and community, and I can really just speak freely in there and be myself and share, all this experience I have and all this very specific knowledge. But at the end of the day, I'm a niche in a niche in a niche. Like I'm a very, very specific type of channel. I'm not doing like live box openings. I'm not doing pack breaks. I'm not doing all the stuff that really gets a lot of hits at the end of the day. I also just don't have the time to like keep up with that. I'd have to get like a whole fleet, a whole crew of people. And if I don't have Logan Paul numbers, I'm not going to have the Logan Paul setup. I'm not going to have a manager and people doing all that. Like having Shizzle do my the banners and like the thumbnails is like as big as it gets for me. So yeah, that's really the thing at the end of the day. I'm just content doing what I'm doing, and I'll do it as long as it's not too much of a hindrance, too much of a stressor. There are times when it's tough, because especially the public videos, they really are a wash from me. I don't really make the time and effort it takes to do the public videos is ultimately negative, and it's only supplemented by Patreon. So if I did not have that, I don't know if I'd still be doing videos just because of the time value aspect. But ultimately, I still have fun doing it. As long as I see people appreciating it, enjoying it, it's something I plan on doing for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's really where my head's at for that one. Buckers23 says, what are some of your favorite non-card products merch from the 90s? I remember having a Pokemon Stadium piggy bank, Pokemon marbles, and a little Charmander figure, to name a few. I probably have that same Charmander figure. I got some over here. I got the OG Pikachu I got from when I was a kid. We'll do a little story time since we're chilling in the holiday Q&A. This little chunky Pikachu, I got the sealed one back here. This guy, this exact thing. So Christmas in 98 was like best Christmas ever. And I remember my brother got that for me. And I was like, every day I wake up, I'm like touching the package. This is like Pokemon mania in the 90s. So that one is one of my most cherished. I even have a picture. I think I shared on E4 before where I'm opening it on Christmas. And you could see like the Nintendo 64 there. Like it's just pure 90s magic. So that's definitely one of my favorites. This guy too, that was a plush. I think I posted a photo on Instagram. I think that was my birthday. I got that. Snowboard Kids 2. Got Snowboard Kids somewhere on the shelf up there somewhere. I have both of those. Christmas and birthday presents. So yeah, all that stuff from the 90s, like these guys, like that's the big chunky 90s Pikachu, the original. I could go on. There's so many. The Game Boy, you can't see it's off shot here, but the Game Boy guide, the white one with all the Sugimori art, that's how I fell in love with like all designs of Pokemon and why I like Sugimori so much. So yeah, those are the ones that come to mind, and a lot of them have layers to them too. Happy Zebra 86 says, will you ever get a Pokemon tattoo? Hypothetically, if you would, what kind of artwork would you use for the tattoo? All right, so this is a really good question. I'm personally not a tattoo person. That's just me. I'm also not one of those people who's going to judge you if you do have a tattoo. It's just not my thing, because I'm someone who, even the things I really, really like, I don't know if I'd want that on my skin lifetime, but for people who do, I think some of the top ones that come to mind, like Dan from E4 has like a whole leg sleeve of like all the trophies, like Unicarp, Trophy Kangaskhan, all of them, Illustrator, everything. If you can't get those actual cards, you just get them inked on you. It's a big brain move. But that one's actually pretty cool because it's like someone who really likes, the hobby, really likes collecting this stuff. And, especially those cards, like most people won't be able to buy all those. So it's a really nice, like, combination of things. So that one I think is fun. I think people who just get tattoos that have meaning and layers to them, I like that. Like I see a lot, and I'm not trying to like offend anybody, but like someone who gets like a generic like anchor or whatever, Carpe Diem, sees the carp thing, I'm not trying to be critical of them, but a lot of that to me is just really generic, and I like to see the ones that have like a deeper meaning to them or some type of like personal, like I think Rayquaza on Potsinator on E4 has like multiple Rayquaza tattoos because that's like his thing. Like he collects Rayquaza. That's cool to me. Like people who like Gyarados or whatever, or certain Pokemon, I think that's probably the way I go. If I did it, maybe I'd get like an illustrator. My friends at hockey who know what I do, and when they find out, especially about the big deals I've done over the years, they're like, God, if I was selling Pokemon cards for that much, I'd get a tattoo of Pikachu on my forehead. So it's been suggested, but so far it's something that I haven't done myself, but that would be the route I'd go if I did. All right, last up to close us off for the Q&A, EcoBase says, what is the most valuable lesson you've learned in 2021? Thanks for the great content and happy holidays. Definitely a nice way, appropriate way to seal this all up with the 2021. The most valuable lesson I learned, I think, I'll combine both of them, 2020 and 2021. I think looking at both of them together, I think the main thing is just maintaining perspective. I think I've seen a lot of people who left the hobby in 2020 because the prices became appealing enough for them and they sold everything and they're gone now. People have been around a long time. Like some guys have been around 10 plus years, just dipped out immediately when prices got high enough in 2020. So there are also people who I think got burnt out by all the roller coaster of up and down, scalpage and all that stuff. So the thing I think I'd say is people who survived the storm and are here in 2021 is that hype comes and goes, fundamentals never die. For the person who asked like the things I want to be remembered for, maybe it's some of these smpratisms I think are just like kernels of the reality of collecting, especially in Pokemon. Like there's so much noise at times. There's so much mania, so many channels trying to get you to be outraged with them, but in reality they just want you to click and they want you to, just do their thing, and they're not really concerned at the end of the day. If you watch a lot of my stuff from 2020, the number one thing I was saying over and over is just stay calm. Like, this is just a moment. This is just a market condition. It's not going to be like this forever, and here we are. And it was easier for me to do that because I've been through this ride multiple times. I've been to that rodeo so many times over the years with Pokemon Go, Gold Star Bubble, social media, the housing recession. I was there in the housing recession. So I've been through this ride and rodeo so many times. The numbers are a little bit different. The zeros might be a little bit more than the past. But overall, I think that's the thing. Not only, I guess, what I learned ultimately is just reinforcing that stay the course, maintain perspective. And I have to do that on my own personal level too. Like, I have to make sure I'm not getting sucked into the weeds and, the unproductive, low quality negativity that exists everywhere in every hobby. And yeah, in 2020, it was really hard. I think there are a lot of people who were disenfranchised. There were a lot of people who came and went. A lot of people sold out because, it just made sense for them. There's a lot of chaos and opportunity in the past couple of years. So if you did stay the course, I think you're probably enjoying the hobby right now and in a good place, because it has calmed down. Celebrations, I'm always looking around because I got celebrations everywhere. This type of stuff, excluding this exact UPC, but the ETBs for this are unbelievably affordable. It's a fantastic set, and the ETBs are everywhere. I could casually order Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, So at the end of the day, if you did maintain that perspective, I think it's much better today. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what 2021 was, in my opinion. It was the light at the end of the tunnel of the chaos that was 2020. And for people like myself and people who've been around for a while, it was much easier to stay here, stay the course and just ignore all the noise and all the open mouth YouTubers telling you it's the end of the world, whatever things going on, even bubble talk and all that tells me is you really just don't understand how the markets work. You don't understand the fundamentals behind these cards. And if you stay the course and just continue to observe, be engaged and absorb that knowledge over time, you're probably doing much better, not only monetarily, but just emotionally and happiness, overall. You're probably just in a better place mentally and everything else. So yeah, that's what I learned in 2021. Stay in the course, ignoring the noise, and just maintaining a balanced perspective and understanding that hype comes and goes, fundamentals never die. That's just 100% truth. Like, no matter what people say, no matter how much they want to scare you, that whatever's going on, the scalpage of 2020, I remember saying, I'm like, guys, it's just a market condition. It'll pass once Pokemon hears, which they will. And here we are with celebrations. Fantastic. I would say majority of this year. I think we can all agree. Majority of this year, there wasn't as much scalpage anywhere near like it was in 2020. So there you go. That's what I have for this Q&A. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Just a reminder, I do this every single month in Patreon. You might see a discount in the future for Patreon in the maybe near future. It's something I'm kicking around about how to implement and everything. I've done it before in the past where I always grandfather people in. So the only reason I'm hesitant on it is because usually when I do that, I get a flood. It's like lowering the price at PSA. When they drop it down to like $30 or $20, it's just like a flood. So I just have to make sure I have the time and everything ready if I end up doing that. But nonetheless, I got to thank all you guys for your support, especially all the Patreon members. You're all the reasons why I'm still doing this, and I love doing these long-form Q&As. I absolutely love it. I wish I could do this every week. If I could just do Q&As every week, it'd be so much fun because I just love the back and forth. I learn a little something. Hopefully you guys do too. So there it is, guys. Hope you enjoy the holidays. Try to take it easy. Again, I might take a little vacation here, and hopefully you guys do the same. Just try to relax. It's been a crazy couple of years, and mental health and relaxing has never been more important. So anyway, there it is. You know the deal. Let me know how I feel. That's pretty much it, guys. Happy holidays.